Upon understanding causality, we have to determine if our ideas are moral or not, whether they cause harm or not. Only after that we get to respond. The tool for that is Trivium, and it's a simple way to heal internal division. Trivium, the place where three roads meet. Observe, recognize, respond. Grammar, logic, rhetoric. Knowledge, understanding, wisdom. Input, processing, output. Head, heart, hands. Think, feel, act. We are not our thoughts. We are not our feelings. And we are not our actions. However, thoughts and feelings point towards what we are becoming, and through actions we become. Babies start observing, recognizing, and responding. Unfortunately, too many times we forget how to apply these 3 steps and settle for unconscious reacting or blind obedience. Obedience is an immoral act. Morality is an internalized through individual's conscience, a sense of inner awareness or judgment that guides actions based on one's understanding of right and wrong. One has a duty to disobey immoral orders and a duty to pass moral judgment. A truly good person will strive never to perform an action unless they have first determined the morality of that action for themselves. Mark Passio. Next. My motivation has always been helping those on the noble path. That's why I formed a should example of Trivium. Awakening is attainable for those who seek and desire it, for those ready to work on themselves. A genuine revolution starts within ourselves. Without personal growth, there is no real improvement. To awaken, one must recognize being in a state of sleep. Wake up. Some refer to it as taking the red pill or experience the Great Awakening. Unfortunately, too often efforts stop there. When we wake up, we are left stranded with a promise that a savior is coming, be it a politician, a returning small g god, a hero, or aliens. If any of them truly wanted to help, they wouldn't want to be our savior. Waking up to the current human condition is profoundly unsettling. There must be a second step, which starts with question what is not missing instead of what is missing. Grow up. Acquiring a better understanding, correcting beliefs, gaining a better grasp of truth and reality. I recall a mother receiving a jail sentence for beating her daughter into coma. Her lawyer, after the sentence was passed, remarked, "She is not evil. She is still a child. She never got to grow up." In this presentation, I'm focusing on this step because I'm disgusted by the system abusing people who want to do good. They are indoctrinated, taught to obey without understanding the consequences of their actions. So the last step, the proof of the concept. Step up. It's the most important part. And it's all about you. No one can play your part, sing your song, or offer what you have to offer. It's yours to give. Overcoming the current condition, updating mindset, and helping others to do the same. Whether we like it or not, the world is not a single-player game. By their fruit, you will recognize them. Next. We must outgrow a belief that we have a right to be violent or cause harm. Please note, self-defense is not violence. It stops violence. One has a right to defend oneself. No one can be right or have a right to cause harm. And if no one has it, no one can grant it to a representative, so no one can have it. It doesn't exist, and it never will. Many claim not to believe in violence. However, our current system utilizes violence to cause harm, stealing someone's rights to potentially prevent the rights from being stolen. The current system guarantees violence, harassment, and duress to potentially prevent violence, harassment, and duress. Playing God, causing violence and harm, just because some ideas are deemed so good that they can be forced on others. To reduce crime and wars, remember, violence is wrong, even if you agree with it. Teach people that violence is wrong. Period. But what about evil people like Stalin, Mao, and Hitler? There will always be a psychopath who wants to commit the next genocide. However, without voters, police, and an army supporting them, they're just a crazy individual. For everyone who believes in violence as a solution, we need 10 who do not. Period. The end. You can go home now. Or if you don't get it just yet, next. Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowing good and evil, an act known as the fall of man. This disobedience is considered the first sin, and it brought about the rupture in the relationship between humanity and God. For God knows when you eat of it your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. Genesis 3:5. It's important to understand that being able to know and to understand are two different things. That's why they couldn't remain in ignorance and perfection and were cast out. Same as in casino. If you know how to cheat the system, you are thrown out. Also, the tree was in the middle of the garden, just like the dot, the hardest position to ignore. Once we have the knowledge of how to harm someone, we have an obligation not to abuse that power. People are programmable, raisable, teachable. That's why we have different moral values through different places and times. We have a moral duty to measure the impact of our ideas, because in the realm of unmeasured thoughts lies the potential for unintended consequences and ethical transgressions. We have an obligation to pass moral judgment. Lucifer and his followers wanted to make their own rules. Rule number 1 is, do not create your own rules. If we do, we just get infinite rules. It's funny when atheists claim they don't believe in God, but also at the same time they want to determine right and wrong and play God themselves. Government is also a belief. People made it up. The most dangerous belief that causes democide, which has a record for the most unnatural human deaths in history. Democide refers to intentional killing of a large number of civilians by a government or its agents. The darkest places in hell are reserved for those who maintain their neutrality in times of moral crisis. Dante Alighieri. The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be good or evil. Hannah Arendt. Next. Many wrong beliefs are formed and many wrong steps are taken before someone fires the first shot. In 1812, the story of Hansel and Gretel was published. Like many so-called good stories, it begins with separation of a child from their parents. While many stories starts with death of a parent, this one is even more unsettling. Beginning with the parents' intent to kill their own children, instilling the fear of not having enough or not being good enough. The same fear led the characters in Hans Christian Andersen's story to believe in something that didn't exist. The story concludes with Hansel and Gretel returning home and securing their place in the family by finding a treasure in the house of a witch, which they burnt in a brick oven. What happens a few generations later, when they introduce a rich enemy who is stealing from you? Subconsciously, you already know what can happen and what possible solutions are available. What is considered normal? Just follow the breadcrumbs. Can you see how trauma could push someone to make a wrong decision due to internal division, acting out of fear? If classification, symbolization, discrimination, dehumanization, segregation, and polarization were wrong in Nazi Germany, wouldn't they also be wrong today? Or it does depend on which side you are on. Next. In 1933 Germany, 14 million voters supported the Nationalsozialistische Deutsche Arbeiterpartei, also known as the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The Nazis, led by Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, swiftly moved to control and centralize the broadcasting industry. In May 1933, the Reich Radio Company was established to coordinate all radio broadcasting under Nazi control. Anti-Semitic propaganda dehumanized Jewish individuals, depicting them as subhuman, evil, and a threat. This dehumanization aimed to justify discriminatory politics and actions against Jewish individuals, labeling them as parasites and vermin. In July 1993, Rwandan Radio Television Libre de Mille Collines became the main voice of the genocidal regime. The media referred to the enemies as cockroaches and encouraged violence against them. In 2023, memes calling Russians orcs started to spread around. Russians, just like Germans and Rwandans, did not understand what they had no right to do. Divisive propaganda is so effective that we are stuck with it for generations. No one is born a slave. There is only enslavement of free people. Who did the church burn in Dark Ages? Books and witches? No, they were women accused of witchcraft. Was it witchcraft or healing? Or were they just too independent? And at the end of the day, it was not church. Buildings and institutions do not burn people. People do. Next. The media consistently contributes to division, acting as a weapon of mass distraction and dysfunction. Consider the interview with Yuri Bezmenov, where he explains how demoralization, destabilization, crisis and normalization work, how these tactics persist, employed by every government and their propaganda apparatus. In 2021, we witnessed full force of propaganda. In Slovenia, the documents for vaccine purchases were publicly disclosed. The seller wanted to make governments and media apparatus acknowledge the unknown efficiency and potential adverse effects of the vaccines. Despite this, the national broadcasting system, radio stations, newspapers, internet outlets, and politicians persisted in promoting the single narrative of vaccines as the only solution, safe and effective. They continue to spread hate against those questioning their truth and their reality. Normalization can endure indefinitely, leaving those vilified hanging without an invitation back to society. The greatest evil perpetrated is the evil committed by nobodies. That is by human beings who refuse to be persons. Hannah Arendt. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Joseph Goebbels. This is the document. Signature is redacted, signed in Ljubljana, the main city of Slovenia, on 28th of September 2021. The full document is available on X. Next.